You're listening to Sports Jam, recorded April 15th, 2012, episode 33. With any luck, it's RG3.
I'm Chad Cetera. Is Andrew Luck the best fantasy quarterback available?
I'm Stephen Petra. New York Knicks gonna be in the 6th spot in the NBA playoffs.
I'm Vince O'Connor. The New York Knicks, anywhere other than the 8th spot in the playoffs, not happening.
And I'm Rob Steele. Boy, you gotta love those Texas rivalries.
April 26th is just around the corner, and the NFL draft will be upon us. The Indianapolis Colts are on the clock, and it appears they will select Andrew Luck, quarterback from Stanford, with the number 1 pick. Going number 2 will most likely be Robert Griffin III, the Heisman Trophy winner out of Baylor, to the Washington Redskins. Those are the likelihoods, but gentlemen, we all play the fantasy football realm. We all love to see statistics thrown out there because we want our fantasy teams to win. Gentlemen, the question of the week, is it Andrew Luck or is it Robert Griffin III? Vince, who do you got?
I like Robert Griffin III from a purely fantasy standpoint. I know and I feel the same way you do. I think where Luck may have a little bit of a better career than Robert Griffin, but for a fantasy standpoint, to score points and to win championships, I think you want this guy on your team. I think he's going to score touchdowns. He's going to rush for touchdowns. He's going to throw for touchdowns. And I'm not so sure Andrew Luck's going to be one of those guys that's going to be running them in. And if you look at the other spectrum of this, is that Robert Griffin's most likely going to be teamed with Mike Shanahan. The last quarterback that Shanahan had his hands on that was as mobile as this guy, do you know who that was? That was John
Elway. Actually, now that you think about it, it was McNabb.
Thank you. And how good did that work out? Just kidding, Rob. Just kidding.
Well, I agree with you. Mike Shanahan is a great coach, and he has dealt with a lot of mobile quarterbacks. And when you said John Elway, that's the first person that everybody thinks about. But he got John Elway at the end of his career, so is it really... Can you really look at it and say John Elway was a mobile quarterback at the end of his career? No, but if you want to go one step behind that and say the last mobile quarterback that he had when he was a quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, it was Steve Young between 92 and 94. And I agree, he did a great job with Steve Young, had 1,400 yards rushing in a 3-year span with 14 touchdowns. Yeah, it's hard to argue with it, but I don't know. Stephen, who do you think before I...
Chad, let me put everything to rest right here. It's RG3, Robert Griffin III, and 4 seasons at Baylor. And 1 season, he only played 3 games, so really 3 seasons. He passed for 10,000 yards, 66% completion percentage, and he rushed for 32 touchdowns, and he threw for 77. Did Andrew Luck do that?
I gotta tell you something from strictly a fantasy standpoint here. And Chad, you know this as well as everybody else who plays fantasy football. Sometimes you have to have a feeling about a guy. I don't care how many stats you pull off of Google on what he did in college, it makes no difference. You got to have that feeling. And my feeling is that he's going to have a tremendous career as a professional quarterback. And he's going to score a lot of points from a fantasy standpoint. If you have that feeling, you go with that feeling, and throw out the stats. It doesn't matter what they did in college. What matters is what he does here for the Washington Redskins, if that's where he lands, and what Andrew Luck does for the Indianapolis Colts. Now, let's not forget about these are the 2 worst teams. No, actually, Washington wasn't. They moved up in a trade, but they weren't that good last year. Yeah, but they weren't that good. So there's a lot of building blocks that have to be laid down for these guys to be successful also. Although both of these organizations want these guys to be as successful as they possibly can, obviously, because they're going to they think they're very highly of them to take them 1 and 2. So
Chad, was Cam Newton a fantasy success last year?
I would agree. Yeah, he broke the NFL record for passing yards by a rookie. He had, 400 yards in each of his first 2 games, ran the ball like crazy. Yes, Cam Newton was a fantasy success.
And Robert Griffin III is built exactly like Cam Newton.
A little smaller.
He can run, but he stays in the pocket and he passes. I didn't even know Cam could pass till he got to the NFL because all he did was run against the SEC. Robert Griffin stays in the pocket and runs second. That's what you want. The new age quarterback stays in the pocket and is mobile and he can run. That's RG3. Andrew Luck, I mean, I wouldn't take him.
We're still going to see a lot. We're still going to see a lot of Andrew Luck, though. And I'll tell you why. And it's not for his playing reasons. There's a marketing aspect that I don't think anybody has thought of yet. The Colts kind of have to take Andrew Luck. What is his last name? His last name is Luck. What is the symbol on the side of the Colts helmet? Think of the marketing possibilities if they take him and how much money they can bring in marketing this guy with this team. They have to take Luck, even though I don't think he's as good a quarterback.
Oh, it's a 3 against 1.
So our fantasy debate between RG3 and Andrew Luck is brought to you by MyFantasyLeague.com. MyFantasyLeague.com is the most customizable fantasy football league management system on the web. For more information, visit www.myfantasyleague.com. Gentlemen, it might be 3 against 1, and yes, it is obvious. I'm thinking Andrew Luck is the fantasy quarterback that I want to have on my team. Here's why. One is we're talking about this year, next year, and the year after. Yeah, I'm going to say RG3 is the quarterback you want. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You look at Cam Newton, you see the success that he had. You look at a player back in the late 90s named Dante Culpepper, and you see the success that he had. But on the flip side,
Tebow.
And I'm not even going Tebow. But you look on the flip side, gentlemen, Andrew Luck is built like a guy that is in Green Bay right now. Wears number 12, Aaron Rodgers. Has pinpoint accuracy, has a strong arm, and has mobility. Aaron Rodgers, you don't know and think of him as a mobile quarterback, but he will get you the yards and will scramble in for the touchdowns whenever needed. And, oh, by the way, he throws for well over 4,000 yards. He has the best passing percentage in the NFL the last year and over 40 touchdowns. That is the kind of quarterback that I want 3 years from now. Go back to that late 90s where I just talked about Dante Culpepper. Scrambling mobile quarterback a la RG3, a la Cam Newton. Had a great receiver in Randy Moss. So, yeah, he got a little lucky having a player like Randy Moss. And not to mention a should-be Hall of Famer, Chris Carter. 3-4 years into his career, the running and the mobility caught up to Dante Culpepper. He started getting hurt. He started breaking down. How many years did it take before Peyton Manning broke down? He was on the worst team, the Indianapolis Colts, his first season, and it took him 3 years before they actually started being relevant. It took Peyton Manning 3 years before he became relevant as a fantasy player. Andrew Luck is the same thing. 10 years from now, we're not going to be sitting here talking about is it Andrew Luck or RG3. We're going to be saying, do you really want a 33-year-old Andrew Luck as your fantasy quarterback or a 24-year-old that's coming out of college? That's my opinion.
Chad, you said scrambling quarterback. RG3 does not scramble. He stays in the pocket, and when the pocket collapses or he sees he needs to get out of there and he doesn't have anybody open, then he runs. It's different than a scrambling quarterback. This guy is a pocket passer, very accurate, I might add, 66%. Vince doesn't want to go to college stats, but we don't have any other stats. And he stays in the pocket, and he throws the ball. He runs second. That is the best quarterback for the new NFL.
Listen, I definitely agree with you. I don't disagree with what you're saying at all. And I think, Chad, if you're comparing him to Culpepper, that's just not a fair comparison. They're way two different quarterbacks. I mean, even coming out of college, they were two different quarterbacks. So that's not a fair comparison to me. I think exactly what Steven says is exactly right. He is a pocket quarterback first, a runner. He has the instinct. He has the instinct that a lot of quarterbacks don't have. He knows when to run. And he didn't do it that often in college, but when he did, he's an athletic kid. He picked up chunks of yardage.
I mean, so then again, you're throwing out, okay, we'll throw out the mobility thing, but let's even look at Andrew Luck's stats. I mean, he ran the ball 163 times in college for nearly 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns. It sounds to me the same kind of quarterback. So then you've got to use, okay, which one of the two played more up to the competition and played in a more important games. Yes, RG3, you can sit here and argue that he played against Oklahoma, he played against Oklahoma State, but in these games, he got hurt, and he got banged up. Andrew,
when did he get hurt? Who got hurt? RG3?
There was a game during the season, RG3 goes out in the first or second quarter. You had to ask me what game it was. Yes, I made the mistake of bringing up that he got hurt, but RG3 went out early in one of the games. Mobile quarterbacks, which, in my opinion, if you look at the two, he is more of a mobile quarterback than an Andrew Luck. He is going to be more apt to get hurt than Andrew Luck. But that being said, an Andrew Luck, to me, is just like an Aaron Rodgers. And if I had to choose, fantasy-wise, all right, then let's just use this. Let's scrap both of these guys as far as their college and who they are. Who does Andrew Luck remind you of currently in the NFL? Would you guys agree that he reminds you a lot of Aaron Rodgers?
No. No! He doesn't.
Then who's the quarterback that he compares to?
Andrew Luck. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, I didn't even know about him until he came on the scene behind Brett Favre, when he came in the games, when Brett Favre got hurt. Where did Aaron Rodgers go to school at?
California.
Okay.
Should have been a top pick in that draft.
Should have been. But he wasn't.
But he didn't. He fell.
Well, exactly. Why did he fall? Why did he fall? Because of the history of the quarterbacks that came out of California?
I think a lot of it was supply and demand that year. I don't think there was a demand for quarterbacks. Look at it. Green Bay selected him, number 24, and they had a Hall of Famer named Brett Favre that was still only 33 years old.
Chad, Stanford had a NFL coach, and
Jim Harbaugh.
They were on the map.
Correct.
We didn't even know about Baylor till RG3 got there. I didn't even know they had a football team. Did you?
No, and that's right there.
Exactly.
Because you didn't know they had a football team. You knew they had a football team.
I didn't know they played football. I thought they just played basketball and volleyball and lacrosse.
They played in the Big 12, which is an inferior conference to the SEC. Oh, that's
how
right.
many teams are in the Big 12?
Something like that. Okay, well, there's a nice argument, too, for those that should think about Andrew Luck over RG3. We didn't think of Baylor as a football team, but you knew that Andrew Luck came from a quarterback's coach in Jim Harbaugh, who not only is a quarterback's coach, he was a quarterback in the NFL, so you already have the pro system. Andrew Luck is ready for the NFL.
Did he win Heisman?
He was second 2 years in a row.
Oh, I mean, second's the first loser. That's pretty good.
Hey, let me just throw out guys, let me throw you a stat out there. Out of the last, around about 9 or 10 Super Bowls, you've had Tom Brady win 3 of them. You've had Peyton Manning win 1. You've had Ben Roethlisberger win 2. You've had Eli Manning win 2. And you had Drew Brees win 1. The one that's also lumped in there is Brad Johnson. Now, do you think that Andrew Luck is going to have company with these guys in here? I don't think so. Personally,
Not
I don't.
anytime soon.
Not anytime soon. So what do you think? That's, 3, 4, 5 yeyears away?
It doesn't. You can't take a quarterback and as a rookie and overnight make it to the Super Bowl. It's.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on for a minute.
It has happened.
Ben Roethlisberger did that.
Big did.
Roethlisberger did not make the Super Bowl his rookie season. Roethlisberger won 15 games in a row and lost in the AFC Championship game.
All right, well, I'll give you that.
It seems like he made the Super Bowl.
The point is that
and
do you
Marino
think
made it
that
to
Andrew Luck is going to be able to come into this
Neither of them are going to make the playoffs this year.
And win. Yeah, exactly. That's my point. You think he's going to get them to the playoffs anytime within the next 2 to 3 years?
No.
I think the Redskins...
No, I don't. But I don't see the Redskins doing it either. I mean, look at the NFC. Look at the NFC. And look at the teams that are in the NFC. Not only just look at the NFC, look at that division. You've got the dream team who is going to come together in Philadelphia, and I think their defense is going to gel, and they're going to have they should have a better season in 2012. You've got the defending Super Bowl champions in that same division, and not to mention the Dallas Cowboys, which, if the Redskins beat the Cowboys, I'm okay with that. But honestly, 3 teams in that division alone is going to make it difficult for RG3 to elevate the Redskins to the next level. If you're going to sit here and tell me that the addition of Josh Morgan and Pierre Garçon will help that offense, come on.
Well, the only thing that I would throw in with this is character issues, and I know neither one of these guys have any character issues. As a matter of fact, I think that's the reason why they may be going 1 and 2 is because they are the 2 best quarterbacks in this draft. And not only the 2 best quarterbacks, in my opinion, they could be the 2 best players available in this draft. So, I think
are there other players available?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Are there other players available? All I've been hearing for the past year is Luck and RG3, Luck and RG. And if you've got the 3rd pick in the draft, you're screwed because there is no one else that's available. So,
well, Rob, I'm glad you asked that question because next week we're going to have a Sports Jam exclusive, the 2012 Sports Jam NFL mock draft. We're going to have fun with it. We're going to go through the entire first round from pick 1 to pick 32. And yes, there are 3 through 32, Rob, which you'll be amazed and excited to hear. No baseball.
Which pick do the Jets get to screw up?
And
with
Tebow.
the 16th,
they already did. They got Tebow.
No, you know what they're going to do? They're going to find another quarterback and draft him in the first round.
If they do that, then that would be excellent.
Yes, we'll have fun with it anyway.
Real quick, guys, to go back on this RG3 Andrew Luck thing, looking at fantasy seasons, the greatest seasons of a fantasy quarterback of all time, Tom Brady is the number 1 in 2007 when he had the 50 touchdown passes. In 84, Dan Marino threw for 5,000 yards. I mean, that's arguably a great season. You got Drew Brees this past year, Matthew Stafford this past year, again Tom Brady this year. Then you look at it, Peyton Manning in 2004. Those are the top quarterbacks seasons ever before you even get to a mobile quarterback. Just saying.
All of them are mobile. It's not like they're being wheeled out on the field or anything.
Well, in Denver, you might find that. I'm sorry. My argument is that, and I'll use it. And I know I've heard you guys say it, and the more I listen to you guys, the more I'm being convinced he's not. But I still see RG3 as more of a mobile quarterback. Yes, he's a pass first, mobile second, but I'm sorry, he's not to me a traditional pocket passer.
Why? So if you stand in the pocket and pass the ball before you run, Michael Vick was the complete opposite. He tried to run before he would even think about passing. He stands in the pocket. It's collapsing. He has to run. He has the athletic ability to run and to make plays.
And that's why he is not a good fantasy quarterback to ever have on your team.
So Cam Newton. So we don't need to draft Cam Newton then, right?
Before the beginning of last year, I would have said the same thing about Cam Newton as I am about RG3.
Okay.
Is that he is a mobile quarterback first, pass second. Now, I was proven wrong. But the instincts tell me, in the way he was in college, at some point, Carolina is, if they don't get any help for receivers-wise, because Steve Smith is about 150 years old, when he goes away, who's Cam Newton going to throw the ball to? He cannot throw it to himself. He's going to start using his legs again. And that's the fear I have in RG3. He has that mobility instincts that he wants to get out of the pocket. He's a game changer. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Chad. Let me ask you a question. Let's just assume that it got switched around and RG3 was going to Indianapolis and Luck was going to Washington. Do you think there's any difference in the squads they're going to? In other words, do you think Washington's a little bit more further along than Indianapolis is, or do you think vice versa?
I think the
as
defense,
a team.
I think the defense in Washington gives them more. They keep them in games a lot more than what Indianapolis is. Indianapolis, literally, and I'll tell you this: they were one player away last year from making the playoffs, even at a 2-14 record.
They were one player away from being no wins. What do you mean? I mean, are you kidding me? They only had 2 wins.
They had the same team as they did the year before that made the playoffs.
Stop
with
it.
Manning.
Come on. Are you serious?
Exactly.
They won 2 games.
And
didn't they just get rid of all of them? Then?
Thank you, Rob. I was
did.
about to say, they got rid of the whole offense.
Except Reggie Wayne, who for some stupid reason went back there.
Well, that's because he has a wheelchair there.
Well taken. No, okay, so outlandish statement to say Peyton Manning was one player away, but think about how much better Peyton Manning made every single one of those players.
And Andrew Luck is as good as Peyton Manning.
Andrew Luck, and I'm using the experts, Mel Kiper, Todd McShay from ESPN, all the experts you read on the internet from Yahoo, from CBS Sports, has said specifically.
You know what? They're so-called experts, but you know what? What makes them more expert than us?
They watch more.
We watch football. We know football. We can read the same stats they read. It's gut feeling, like I told you before. It all comes down to a gut feeling. You know what I mean?
That's true. And my gut feeling tells me 5 years from now, Andrew Luck's the better option. And
he very well may be a better option to win, but from a fantasy standpoint, I'll take Robert Griffin III. But you know what? I think they're both going to have fabulous careers. I really do.
I'm going to tell you this.
I think they're both going to flop.
RG3 is going to be good in fantasy, and he's going to be a better player than Luck. 10 years down the road, Chad's going to have to come back on this show and have to apologize for taking Luck.
Sure I will. No doubt about it. I'm certain I will. And I think what we all need to do now is apologize. Well, wait, no, that's me again. I'm apologizing for thinking that the New York Knicks were a good basketball team and actually had a chance to make noise in the Eastern Conference in the second half of the season. Yeah, insert foot in mouth here. The Knicks, although have been on a hot streak of late, are still struggling to get into the Eastern Conference playoffs. And, guys, it looks like they're going to be one of those teams fighting for the last Eastern Conference spot, but will they even go anywhere if they get the 8th seed?
Chad, they're two games ahead of Milwaukee, and they have the tiebreaker. So I think the Knicks get in, and I think they can move up to as far as 6. Philadelphia is struggling. They're 4-6 in their last 10. New York's only half game behind Philly, and the Orlando Magic is a train wreck that nobody even wants to look at. They're 3-7 in the last 10, and I mean it's just
so with 6 games left in the season. You think the Knicks can overtake the Orlando Magic for the 6th seed?
Really? Do.
Okay. With Dwight Howard's injury situation.
Yeah, who cares about that?
And Van Gundy.
I mean, forget about Howard for a minute. When they didn't have him on his team, they played good basketball. So you're saying that they have 3 games with guys that are over 500, 3 games left with guys that are below 4 teams below 500. You think the Knicks are going to be able to overtake the 6th spot? Come on.
Since the Howard and Van Gundy debacle, where Van Gundy was wanted to be fired by Howard, they're 3-7. They're not playing good ball. Howard's not trying. He says he's trying. He's not trying. If you watch the game, he looks horrible. He looks like he's throwing the game.
He doesn't want to be there. You know he doesn't want to be there.
Thank you, Vince.
He doesn't want to be there.
Thank you, Vince. Thank you for proving my point. That is why he doesn't want to be there. Why is he going to try? New York can move up to 6 spots.
Now he has this injury that's going to keep him out 10 to 14 days.
He's not even hurt. He's not hurt.
I still don't see him moving up to 6. Listen, if the Knicks move up at all, the Knicks are going to move up to 7, and that's it. They're not going any higher than 7.
Okay, so number 7 gets you the Miami Heat in the first round.
Correct. So they're gone.
Insert my foot in my mouth. The Knicks are not going to make any moves. They don't have a chance. And Steven, Dr. Steven?
Yes, sir.
There's no way there's no way the Knicks move up to number 6. Orlando could lose all 6, but the Knicks are so inconsistent, as we all have all seen. There's no way.
This is coming from Chad, who said they were going to be the number 3 seed at the halfway point.
Hey, you know what? I do have drug testing every once in a while.
Let me. If they move to if somehow by a miracle apparently, which is because you said there's no way, if they move to the number 6 spot, they can make a run. They're not going to beat Chicago, Miami in a 7-game series, but they can beat in Indiana. Do you agree with that, or are you going to throw me under the bus again?
No, I think they could beat Indiana, but they're not going to be paired up with Indiana. So what's the point of even talking about it? They're not going to jump. I mean, at the midway point, they were the 7th seed. Now they're the 8th seed. They lost their golden boy, Jeremy Lin. Are they? Yeah, they're playing good basketball right now, and they're one of the top defensive teams over the last 10 games. I give you all that. That's not enough to get them to the 6th seed. It's just not. I don't care if Howard doesn't play for the rest of the season. It's not enough to get them there.
So
7, maybe. Not 6.
But since Mike Woodson has become coach, and they knocked out D'Antoni, Carmelo Anthony, Melo, they've made him the focal point, and he has won games. He has taken over games. You don't think that this is a better team, and they get Lynn back? You don't think they can do anything?
They're doing better because when they had Jeremy Lin playing and Carmelo Anthony wasn't playing, they were fine because Jeremy Lin could be the ball hog. And now that Carmelo Anthony's doing good, it's because Jeremy Lin's not playing. It's because Carmelo Anthony can be the ball hog. Once you get both of them on the court, there's only one ball, unlike there was 2 pucks in the NHL game on Saturday. There's only one basketball on the court. They both can't be ball hogs. I agree. Carmelo Anthony is playing like the player that he was drafted for, a top 5 pick in the NBA draft, a lottery pick. That he's playing like that. However, if Jeremy Lin comes back, they're not going to do what they're supposed to. They're going in the first round, and I think they're playing Miami in the first round.
I think Mike Woodson sees the team differently. D'Antoni runs a crazy offense, and I think Woodson knows what's going on. Even when Lynn comes back, I think that they're even a better team because Woodson sees the big picture. They get in the playoffs, they can make a run. But
you think they got a chance to beat Miami if they're in the playoffs?
I mean, they're going to be the number 6 seed, so they're going to play Indiana.
Okay, they're the number 7 seed, Steven. Do they beat Miami?
Well, Miami's shaky, but, I mean, they're going to turn on. They're not going to beat Miami, Chicago. But I think they will, no matter who they play, let's say they play Chicago or Miami, it's going to go 6-7 games because New York, they're good. And they're going to play hard, and Melo's going to win them some games. They'll go 6-7, even if they play Chicago or Miami.
Are you guys all conceding that in the Eastern Conference, Milwaukee pretty much is done, even though they're only 2 games out? Or do you think they have a late-season push that they can maybe jump in past New York, Philadelphia, or Orlando for that last playoff spot?
I don't think so. I think the way it sets up right now is the way it's going to be, with the exception of I think the Knicks probably jump into the 7th spot and Philadelphia secures the 8th spot.
I'll agree. I mean, Milwaukee has to overcome a 2-game deficit, and New York has the tiebreaker. So even if they end up, in a dead heat, New York still wins. So no way Milwaukee's getting in.
What about in the Western Conference, guys? We've got really a logjam there. You look at the 7 and 8 spots. You've got Houston and Denver right now, both at 32 and 27. But you got Phoenix a game and a half back, and Utah 2 games back. I mean, Western Conference is I don't know, pretty interesting. Also, not only on the bottom, but also on the top with Oklahoma City and San Antonio.
I agree with you there. San Antonio, I had them out because they were old, but they got a lot of young players, rookies they're stepping up. But Oklahoma City's going to win in the end. But what I what I think is a surprise is the emergence, since Kobe's been on the bench, of Andrew Bynum. Where did he come from? This is the guy he should have been the whole season. And if he plays the way he's been playing since Kobe has been hurt, they're in first place. They're the NBA champions.
So that doesn't answer my question about the 8th seed. Now, you know what? You're right, Stephen. The Lakers have been playing much improved basketball because of Andrew Bynum, and it's been a surprise that San Antonio has been where they're at. I mean, only one game behind Oklahoma City, and we talked up Oklahoma City at the beginning of the season. You've got great offense with Westbrook and Durant. I mean, they can run up and down the court, but then you've got the old, aging San Antonio Spurs who have basically just slowed down games with the aging Tim Duncan, and yet they're right there. We talked about it, though. San Antonio is built for a short season. Are they built for the postseason? Vince, I don't know. You're about the same age as Tim Duncan, about 100. I mean, can he withstand the playoff series this year? I mean, they got whacked last year against Memphis in the playoffs.
Well, he leaves the court every night on a wheelchair, so who knows?
Something about wheelchairs in you tonight.
Yeah. Well, if he's that old, I mean, come on.
He's sitting in a wheelchair as he's doing the show.
He's still producing, and they are obviously for real. They're in that second spot. They're only one game back from Oklahoma City for the number 1 seed. So, I mean, what do you think?
Weren't they the number 1 overall seed last year, though?
Yep.
And
they got beat by Memphis.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering.
Here you go again. I mean, right now they would be pairing up against Houston. So, I mean, to me, it would be a great Texas rivalry, those two. But look at it again, Houston and Denver.
You do realize Oklahoma City is in Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, I was saying San Antonio. Good observation, Rob.
I'm just the baseball guy. What the hell do I know?
I tell you what, most intriguing matchup in that Western Conference is definitely in the first round. If it stays the way it is right now, is going to be the Lakers and the Dallas Mavericks.
And last year, didn't
Love
the Mavericks
to see that opening round?
Just another great Texas rivalry.
Yeah. Okay. See how it is. I'm interested to see the Clippers and the Grizzlies. That could be an interesting first round. And heck, if the Clippers and Oklahoma City were both to get out of that first round, the NBA doesn't reseed their teams. Clippers and the Thunder in that second round, if it shapes up and everybody holds seed right now.
Another great Texas rivalry.
Well, Chad,
He's going to live on that, isn't he?
Since I didn't answer your question before, do you think Vegas or Utah can get in?
You know, they've got surprising teams. And then, when you look at Phoenix, when you have a Steve Nash who is a former MVP, and they are only a game and a half out with a Denver team who is, equally struggling like they are, anything's possible in that Western Conference. Really it is. I don't see it happening, but you never know.
I just realized my chair has wheels.
Oh, so you are in a wheelchair also.
Apparently.
I see how this is working.
What is happening?
I don't know, but you know what? We need to talk about wheels. Vince, the NASCAR circuit decided to visit Texas this week.
You liked my segue?
Yeah,
I did like it.
Okay, thank you.
We all stayed on wheels, but NASCAR visited Texas this week, and in the NASCAR pool,
another Texas rivalry.
And we just kept it going. Multiple winners this week in the Jam NASCAR pool.
Multiple winners is right. We had eight people had Greg Biffle, and he overtook Jimmy Johnson. I don't know, it wasn't 12, 13, 14 laps to go. Looked like he was just hanging back long enough. And when he decided he wanted to race the last 12 to 15 laps, he just overtook him and coasted on to victory.
To me, the race really was uneventful. And really, there was no major crashes. There was no major incidences. Dominating performances by a handful of drivers. I mean, really?
No, you're absolutely right. You know, it's funny because I think they even mentioned this when I was watching the race, is that the last time they had this few of cautions was back in 1999 in Homestead. There was only 2 cautions, and they were early on. So everything just a lot of green flag pit stops and no cautions. And it was kind of weird to watch a NASCAR race without very many crashes. But, you know, it was a boring race.
Watch the ratings plummet.
It definitely was a boring race. There's no doubt about it. But
so an event like that, NASCAR in the past has thrown up the competition caution, just to kind of even the playing field, to kind of bring everybody in the pack together. Why wouldn't NASCAR do something like that in this race? I mean, 2 cautions, you know.
Because competition caution is lame. Competition caution, why would you do that?
Well, typically the only time you're going to see a competition caution is if there was rain on the track and they just... It's always at the beginning of the race, either 25 or 30 laps in. It's not for something later in the race, no.
Look, competition caution is like the Patriots have won 10 games straight, so we got to pull Brady out of the game. That's how lame it is.
Give them an extra bye week.
Yeah, it's lame.
Put them in a Texas...
Put in that Texas competition there, right? Nice. But the next race for the NASCAR pool will be in Kansas?
Kansas.
And what kind of racetrack are we looking at here? Is it a 1.5 mile track?
I'm going to guess it's kind of round.
A lot of left-hand turns?
Just a guess on my part.
All right. How about let's be more specific on this one, Rob, before we interrupt again.
What kind of history
does Kansas Speedway have, and who is the dominant racers here, and who should we be looking at in the pool this week as maybe coming out with a victory?
Well, I mean, the most popular in the pool are Brad Keselowski and Greg Biffle again. But this week, I really think that, you know, Jeff Gordon's been running way too well to not win a race. And I just think he finally catches up and wins this race. Something just tells me he's going to win this race. He's going to be Hendrick's 200th. He's going to give him his 200th career win, and I think it's going to come this week at Kansas. I don't know why. It's just what I think.
It's your gut feeling, like it is with RG3. You just got that gut feeling going on, don't you?
That's exactly right.
You got to go by the gut, dude. You got to go by the gut.
I hear you. I hear you, Stephen. Yep, we definitely got to go by the gut. Real quick, gentlemen, I know you don't want to talk about it, but you know what? I'm going to talk about it real quick. The NHL playoffs have been awesome. I don't know if you guys have been watching it. Stephen already mentioned it pre-show that he hasn't been watching it, and Rob and I touched on it a little last week. I mentioned that the team that I was thinking would win this thing were the Pittsburgh Penguins. Boy, that was a big mistake on my behalf, as Philadelphia has just gone to Pittsburgh, spanked them around a little bit, and even at home has beaten the crap out of the Penguins. 3-0 series lead, the number 5 seed, and a lot of the road teams are winning in this year's playoffs. Gotta love Stanley Cup hockey. Vince, you've got 2 teams in your local area, the New Jersey Devils, who are playing against a team that hadn't made the playoffs in 13 years in the Florida Panthers, and the number 1 overall seed in the Eastern Conference, the New York Rangers. It's hockey heaven out in New York City right now.
Yeah, it is. It is, and I kind of had a chance to watch that Philadelphia-Pittsburgh game today and saw all of those penalties in the first period. Wow, there was a ton of penalties.
I mean, it was an exciting game. Hockey. Yeah, it's great hockey. Well, you've got a number 8 seed that's winning 2-0. The Kings are beating the President Trophy winner Vancouver Canucks. If anything, and I know I'm preaching to the choir when I'm talking to the 3 of you, but if anything, if you ever watch playoffs, the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs are the best 2 months of playoff. Yes, 2 months of playoffs. That's pretty sad that happens that long. But when you compare it to any other sport, the NHL playoffs are the best playoffs out there because you've got 7-game series. These guys are not even playing for a penny because they don't get paid during their playoffs. The only thing they get to do is have their name inscribed on a big cup, and oh yeah, they get to show off how ugly their beards grow 3-4 weeks into the playoffs. Some of them already look brutal and they're only a week into it, but you know, The passion's
they
there.
weren't pretty to begin with.
Yeah, well, there you go. But, I mean, great series. You've got overtimes with Washington, Boston, series tied at 1. Nashville is up 2-1 over Detroit, winning their first ever road game in Detroit in a playoff series. The action is great. The action is exciting, just like our show.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of The Real Sports Jam. Be sure to friend us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Real Sports Jam and follow us on Twitter at TRSportsJam, or even email us at TheRealSportsJam@gmail.com. We'd like to thank the Danny Nagy Band for our theme song and invite you to listen to our next show, which will be online starting next Monday at noon. Until next week, you've been listening to The Real Sports Jam. We're out.